Welcome to the Darkstream. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and apparently ground zero for the robot uprising. I have no idea if we're getting the robot voice again. Perhaps the first of you tuning in here can let me know. But I did just check out the sound, and apparently the audio is good. So, okay. Good news. So, today, as you're probably aware, we launched the book Jordanetics, A Journey into the Mind of Humanity's Greatest Thinker. And it's really been remarkable. It's really been interesting to see what the reaction of people has been. And what we're seeing already, to precisely no one's surprise, is the fact that we have a lot of work to do. We have a considerable amount of work to do when it comes to explaining to Jordan Peterson's fans the nature of their prophet, specifically the false nature of their prophet. And it's been really interesting to have the opportunity to see the reaction of people who are on different platforms that are not at all familiar with what I've been uncovering and discussing over the past 4 or 5 months, however long it's been. I'm going to read you a couple of the reactions to the mere announcement that this book exists. Okay? Dr. Helen at Instapundit was kind enough to put up a link to this. She put up a link to the Amazon listing, and it's really fascinating to see the reaction to this stuff. Now, keep in mind that these are conservatives. You know, these are not SJWs. These are people who are self-identified conservatives, and they are actively leaping to the defense of someone who is essentially the mix of Deepak Chopra, L. Ron Hubbard, and Aleister Crowley. For example, here's a comment. These are off the Instapundit comment page. I always like to read a bit of something where my view is challenged. I see JP as one of the most original thinkers of our time, and I am constantly amazed at the off-the-cuff wisdom he delivers. So I was skeptical reading a criticism. What I found expressed in the first few pages of Vox Day's critique can fortunately be summed up in only 4 letters. ENVY. Envy. Not worth reading the rest, in my opinion. Now, the amusing thing about most of these reactions, almost all of these reactions to the mere announcement of the book, the mere news that a book of substantial criticism of Jordan Peterson has been published, are all things that I anticipated in the book itself. You know, I specifically addressed the issue of envy and jealousy. And what's funny is that they throw this at anyone. They throw it at Milo. Do you really think that Milo envies Jordan Peterson in any way? Look at how Jordan Peterson has lived his life. That is not how Milo has lived his life or is interested in living his life. And I say this as someone who has been out with him until 4 a.m. in the Paris red light district. I assure you that Milo does not want to live Jordan Peterson's life in any way, shape, or form. Neither do I. Neither does Owen Benjamin. Even Owen Benjamin is being accused of being jealous and envious of Peterson because he dares to criticize him. And it's just really, really fascinating to see how the fans of Peterson are leaping to his defense and offering excuses for literally everything. At this point, it would not surprise me if Jordan Peterson was found ritually sacrificing a virgin child, and these Peterson defenders would jump to explain that this is just a metaphor, and you're just envious of the fact that you don't have children volunteering to submit to your ritual, satanic knife. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. Here's another comment. If you find JBP to engage in word salad, then your vocabulary level is not at a postgraduate level. This is not an insult by any means. It's just that there's very few who have a reading lexile, so to speak, at this level. So all these fans all have postgraduate degrees. He's an intellectual, and unless one enjoys really heavy intellectual discourse, many of his lectures are not going to be very interesting. So, here we have the retreat, and again, this objection was anticipated. Here we have the retreat into, oh, well, you just don't understand it. It's so difficult. It's above you. Then, I don't read Vox Day because he's an open ethno-identitarian collectivist. Not my cup of tea. JBP poses the biggest threat to VT because he can explain why identitarianism is stupid and wrong and take away its audience, making wannabe identitarian leaders like VD irrelevant. Really? When has Jordan Peterson ever explained that identitarian is stupid and wrong? He hasn't. All he does is assert that it is deeply pathological, and then suggests that he might want to run for Prime Minister of Canada. Now, you do understand that there is an intrinsic contradiction there. You're going to run to be the leader of a deeply pathological identity of Canadians? It's just absurd. Let's see here. How very disappointing that Instapundit would promote the work of a lightweight conspiracy theory clown like Vox Day to smear Peterson. How do I smear Peterson? I quote him. I take the ruthless and cruel technique of quoting Peterson and explaining what his references are and what he actually means. All these guys, Matt Welsh, Nick Gillespie, Vox Day, and others, just can't stand the fact that Peterson has struck a chord with men and that they're flocking to hear him speak to the tune of 2,000 people at a clip as he travels the globe. Vox Day couldn't fill a suburban backyard. Matt Welsh couldn't draw 3 people to his office at Reason. Peterson's messages sound multi-layered. It is multi-layered, fundamentally psychological, and beneficial to overall conservative thought. This is a perfect example of the kind of morons who fall for Peterson's baffle-garble. There is nothing beneficial about conservative thought in Peterson. There is nothing beneficial to Christians or Christianity. If you are a Christian, you should no more be reading Jordan Peterson or watching his videos and so forth than you should be playing with a Ouija board, or than you should be sacrificing children to Satan. Okay? His work is spiritual poison. It is designed to lead you away from God. It is designed to lead you away from Jesus Christ. That is his objective. Let's see here. There's actually a pretty funny quote. It's actually from the book, because he's comparing Jordan Peterson's quote on truth with Jesus Christ of Nazareth's "Let your yes be yes and your no by no." For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. Jesus Christ himself is anticipating the likes of Jordan Peterson, and he is telling you that the message of false truth that Jordan Peterson is pushing is from the evil one. And it is. Let's see, there's a couple more. I mean, there's actually not a couple more. There's like 230 comments here or something. Let's see. Anyhow, that's enough of that. The point is that there's far more of this than you would imagine out there. There's a Reddit thread about the foreword that Mila wrote, and it's really incredible to see how hopeless it is in trying to reach some of these people. They are desperately clinging to these false anti-Christian marriages or messages. It's really astonishing to see how they are willing to excuse any behavior, how they're willing to excuse any madness, how they're willing to excuse any nonsense. How much does Peterson have to get away with before conservatives realize how insane he is? I don't know. I mean, all I can say is that if you have a friend, especially if you have a Christian or a conservative friend who is a Peterson fan, I would encourage you to tell them about Jordanetics. And I'm not telling you that just because, we want to sell more books. Yes, of course we want to sell books. But, we publish hundreds of books, and I'm not telling you that about any of them. They're not relevant to that situation. They are relevant here. It's the same way. If you talk about a friend who's in an SJW-dominated organization, then I'll say, hey, you might want to have them read SJW's Always Double Down. If you have a friend who is really into evolutionary psychology, I would recommend Christopher Hallpike's Ship of Fools, and especially his Do We Need God to Be Good? They're very excellent takedowns of evolutionary psychology and some other nonsense like Yuval Harari and his sort of post-humanism. But what we're dealing with here is a neo-Gnostic cult that is being developed to provide something to fill the vacuum of post-Christianity. And it is not a substitute for post-Christianity. One of the most frightening things that you will see, one of the most worrisome things that you will see, is something that I quote towards the end of the book. And there's a bit of synchronicity here. Greg Johnson from Countercurrents asked for a review copy of the book. I don't think he liked it very much, and understandably so. But it was very timely because I had just posted a analysis that Greg Johnson had written of the Yeats poem, Second Coming. And it's a poem that Peterson quotes directly in his work. And the interesting thing is that whereas I looked at that as something that was ominous, Greg Johnson was looking at it as something to be celebrated. As a pagan, he is looking for something like that, and he's looking for something like what Peterson is offering. And so there is legitimately a market for this nonsense. And so, what you're talking about with Peterson is you're talking about a neo-Thelemic, retro updated theosophy. This all goes back to Madame Blavatsky. This all goes back to Yeats and Crowley. And Peterson is using those esoteric works, drawing upon them in order to present this secret knowledge and this 12-rule path to people who are trying to fill the void in their lives. What he's offering is a substitute for Christianity. He's trying to stand against the revival of Christian nationalism. And, there is, Ben says, I'm no genius, but I got some heavy Antichrist vibes the first time I watched Jordan B. Peterson speak. It's something in his mannerisms, maybe. Yeah, there is. I mean, Jordan Peterson is not the Antichrist, but he is certainly an Antichrist. He wants to be the Pope of this new religion of balance. And it's incredibly, incredibly evil. It's incredibly dark. It is, the spirit of Babel. It is the religion of the Tower of Babel. And you can't be fooled by the way that he talks as if he is an opponent of things like the United Nations and other globalist institutions. Rab actually has an excellent point. Jordan B. Peterson is filling the hole that the New Atheists opened years ago. That's correct. Actually, I like the way Ben phrased it. He wants to be the new pope of the left-hand path. That doesn't actually, it's true, but it doesn't actually fit his description. He wants to be the new pope of the middle path, the more perfect order of the middle path. And so, I like the fact that a lot of you are beginning to understand that he is a false prophet. He is the sort of person who the Apostle Paul warned about when they talked about wolves in sheep's clothing. Is what filled the hole worse than the hole itself? Yes, in this case. The new atheism is fundamentally and intrinsically harmless. They are all secular humanists. And secular humanism is largely harmless. The problem is that it ultimately leads to nihilism. And so that's where the connection is to Jordan Peterson, is that the new atheists were there to drive young men and young women, but especially young men, away from Christianity and away from God. But the problem is it doesn't provide for their hunger for spirituality. It doesn't feed their spirit. And so that's where Jordan Peterson comes in. That's where he comes in order to give people something to fill the vacuum. And he's not going to be the only one. I guarantee it. You're right. Neo-paganism is being pushed for the same reason. That's why you have people like Greg Johnson. And, I think that you're going to see a lot of the pagans, the people who are talking up, Wotan and Neo-Odinism and all other sorts of LARPing. You're going to see them gravitate towards cults like Jordan Peterson and other New Age cults because it's stuff that people can actually believe in. And yes, you're going to see more Jordan Peterson's turn up. He's not actually a particularly effective vessel for this particular spirit, because he is so weak, because he is so self-destructive, and because he's clearly mentally ill. How he will fall apart, we don't know, but we know it will probably happen. Are all of his mainstream interviews completely set up to make him look like strong opposition? Yes, I believe so. It's because he says they always retread the same topics: feminism, patriarchy, avoiding these deeper issues. Yeah, it's very obvious at this point that Peterson was created. That whole thing about him bravely standing up to SJWs and stuff, that was all intended to create a following among the right. And so, let's see. Peterson's lectures actually made me feel less hostile to religion. Now I feel positive to Christianity while still being atheist and autistic. As Vox called me, I'm not a Peterson fan anymore. Well, but the problem, that's what a lot of Peterson defenders say. They say, well, but he makes us more open to religion. Well, that's true, and that's good, but what you need to keep in mind is that some religions are bad. Some religions are evil. And he is attempting, they tried the whole secular utopia thing. They have figured out that it doesn't work. Okay? They pushed the new atheists as hard as they could, and what they found out is that it didn't get anywhere. And so they've also, to a certain extent, I believe, figured out that you can't bring a knife to a gunfight. You cannot bring a secular philosophy into a situation where it has to compete with Islam. And so they need to have something, and they don't want Christianity because they hate Christianity more than anything else, because they serve the prince of this world. And so, this is true. Willie Grills mentions he has wooed a lot of clergymen as his devotees, even so-called conservative confessional ones. I've seen that. I know a number of good Christians who defend him. They talk about, they say things like, he talks like I did when I was an atheist, when I was a seeker. But that's not true. He's not. He's not a seeker. He is attempting to proselytize a false and Gnostic religion. Let's see. I'm almost certain all of the Shapiro protests are fake news to give him support also. That's possible, but, sometimes you can just anticipate what other people are going to do. SJWs are doing what they do. Do you need to do much more than wave a red flag in front of them? I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point is that these people are frauds. These people are created and set up in order to try to distract you, in order to try to neutralize you, and in order to try to neuter you. Vox, can you go into more depth on the problem with Thelema? Well, the problem with Thelema is very simple. It's a satanic religion. The spirits that they worship are evil. The spirits that they attempt to manipulate are evil. It's literally black magic. Let's see. Somebody asked me what it was that Milo was picking up when he said that Peterson's relationship with his daughter was strange. I don't know. What I will say is that if you're dealing with somebody who is messing around with pagan esoteric knowledge, and when you are talking about 4 generations of mental illness in the family, it's entirely possible that what we're dealing with here is a multi-generational pagan tradition. And so I don't know. I don't even know the names of Peterson's parents. I'm really not interested in it. But I strongly suspect the more that people dig into what's really going on with Jordan Peterson, the more that they are going to find that there is something very disturbing there. Vox, you're on stage with Sam Harris. He asks you how you can prove God or Jesus. What do you say just before the crowd boos and throws hundreds of chairs at you? I say, do you believe in evil? Let's see. No PayPal, Vox? What's up? No, I don't use PayPal. I don't trust them. His daughter had said she had seen things not there. What happened in that home? Well, like I said, one thing that we know about the New Age pagan religions is that they have, their families are devoted to it. They have long traditions of it, and so I would assume that there is probably some sort of Gnosticism, witchcraft, whatever is going on in there. It is spiritually unhealthy. Bad things happen in significant. Bad things can happen to anyone, but bad things almost always happen to the families of those who are devoted to evil, because evil preys on evil. And if you are not, if you're not a Christian, you have no protection whatsoever against that evil. Because the only thing that evil fears is the power of Jesus Christ, is the power of the name of Jesus Christ. You can talk to a lot of Christians and they will tell you about this. They know about this. They don't like to talk about it that much, especially not to non-Christians, because they don't want to they don't want to get mocked. As they say, the devil's best trick was convincing people that he didn't exist. Well, he does. Evil does exist, and you know it. You have felt it. How do you support me? Right now, the best thing that you can do is pick up a copy of Jordanetics. Gift a couple of copies to your friends. We have some stuff going on related to Archaven and stuff there will be more options and so forth. But at the moment, right now, we're just focused on making sure that as many people get access to Jordanetics as possible. Jeff, stop repeating your questions about Eric Kaufman's book. I've never heard of Eric Kaufman. I've never read the book. In general, don't repeat questions here, please. What should a nationalist pray for? Pray for the recovery of the nations. Pray for a revival of Christianity in your nation. You know, the balance argument can easily be refuted. You don't argue for a balance of arsenic in your diet. You don't argue for a balance of having cancer. Well, that's true. I mean, the balance argument is incredibly stupid. You know, it's the Jedi religion without the midichlorians. It's the religion of every bad fantasy novel written since the 1980s. Why? Ask yourself this. Why do all these religions constantly push the balance? The reason is because they don't want, they know you won't believe that you believe them, you won't follow them if they push openly for evil. So they do the next best thing, which is to move you away from God, to move you away from the truth. Because once they move you away from the truth, then you start to become open to the temptations that they can offer. You know, talk to Owen Benjamin if you want to learn more about that. You know, he's been in the belly of the beast. You know, he's been in the environment where they offer you the first temptation, and if you take it, they offer you the second one and the third one, and so forth. You know, evil operates in a manner that is very, very similar to drug pushers. You know, the first taste is free. And by the end, you know, you don't even own your own ass. What will you do to promote Jordanetics? Probably nothing more than I'm doing right now. You know, I mean, we'll do dark streams. We'll possibly do a Voxiversity about it at some point in time. But, you know, I don't do speaking tours. I don't do public appearances. That's why it's so funny when people are saying you're just envious of Jordan Peterson talking in front of 2,000 people. Hey, I've played on stage at First Avenue. I've played on stage at Glam Slam. My band is literally the only band that ever blew off Lollapalooza. Granted, we were only on the second stage. We were supposed to play either before or after Temple of the Dog. I can't remember which. But, I mean, it's not something that I've ever wanted or sought to do. Would I be willing to do a live stream with Owen Benjamin? Of course. Owen's great. Owen's a great guy. Is there an interview with Stefan Molyneux discussing the book coming up? No, not that I know of. You know, if Stefan wants to have me on, I'd be happy to go on with him. But I'm also not in the habit of inviting myself onto other people's platforms. Do you think that Jordan Peterson made a pact or his grandfather made a pact with a dark force? I wouldn't say that I think so. I would say that it wouldn't surprise me. The other day you said God may have been speaking through Aristotle. How might one know which pre-Abrahamic individuals may have spoke Christian messages? Well, it's all about who speaks the truth. Everything is all about who speaks the truth. This is why you can always tell a false prophet. Because the first thing they have to do is turn you away from the truth. That's why they start offering all these strange definitions and evasive answers. That's the whole point. That's the whole objective, is to evade the truth. So when you see Aristotle telling you exactly the same thing that Jesus Christ did, he said, truth is when you say what is and what is not is not. Falsehood is when you say what is not is and what is not. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Say what is. Say what is not is not. All else comes from the evil one. Anyone who believes there's no such thing as evil obviously hasn't tried to open those little ketchup packets without getting some on your fingers. That is one of the more interesting arguments I've come across, yes. Let's see. How do I not get irritated with Alex Jones when he interrupts? It's his show. That's what he does. I don't do much media anymore. And yes, in answer to the question, Jesse Lee Peterson and I are on very good terms. I like Jesse Lee. Even though I am not doing media, I did do his show because it was like a special event thing that he was doing. And I was happy to do that. I always enjoy talking to Jesse. He has a good heart. He's a good man, and I really respect him. So, let's see. Is it exciting to be a firebrand? Not really. At my age, you're more wondering what the price will be. You're more wondering, how people are going to attempt to make your life difficult, because they will. It could be something as minor as fake reviews on Amazon. We've already seen some of them. It could be something like a mob attempting to bang down the front door of your house when you're not there. And if you don't think that, why do you think that happened? Why do you think that happened now? It happened because Tucker Carlson published Ship of Fools. Very successful book, pretty hard-hitting book. They reacted to it. The mob reacted to it to let them know that they were unhappy about it. Thanks for writing the book. I talked about it on my stream a few minutes ago and already had Jordanites defending him. That's David Stewart. Thanks, David. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. I'm new to you. You have a curious life. Yeah. Can you do a stream to talk about your life? I'm not really interested in doing that, to be honest. I may be arrogant, but I'm not as self-centered as you might think. Have I talked to Cerno about it? He's pretty busy with Hoaxed. I wouldn't expect him to pay any attention to that, to be honest with you. Is Jordanetics only available on Kindle at the moment? Yes. Any chance for a physical copy soon? Yes, we will have one out soon. We always get the ebook out first so that we can get everything all cleaned up. It's always better to have 1,000 eyes on it than 4 or 6. I have a friend that doesn't believe in evil. What should I tell him? You should tell him to read more history. Did you hear about the U.S. representative who suggested nuking towns in the heartland, which refused to turn in guns? Yes, I did. I think that he should resign. What books would be good to read that discuss Christianity in light of scientific views on the age of the earth? I would suggest just don't worry about it. It's irrelevant. If you start getting into discussions of the age of the earth, which doesn't matter, you are going on to enemy turf, and there's no point in it. Do you think Jordan Peterson can save himself? No. How do you stay happily married to a Sigma male? Be patient with his idiosyncrasies. Be able to entertain yourself for extended periods of time, and let him know that you have your respect, affection, and trust. Thoughts on some other frauds out there in the male self-help game lately? They seem to be popping up a lot. That's because men have been under assault, and they are finally beginning to look for answers. And the globalists and the secularists and the pagans are desperately concerned that young men are going to turn to masculine Christian nationalism, muscular Christianity, in response. Here's a very silly statement. Christianity is a lost cause. That's ridiculous. All we need are 12. Is the cover of Jordanetics Jordan wearing holy robes or a psychiatric straitjacket? The latter. It's a straitjacket. Should I distrust Peterson's friends such as Jonathan Pageau? I don't know who Jonathan Pageau is, but I would not trust any of Jordan Peterson's friends. Maybe I am dense, but why is evil proof of God? It's more than proof of God, it's proof of Christianity. Evil does, the very concept of evil does not exist without Christianity. I still pray that Jordan Peterson can be saved every night. That's good. You should. You know, he can be saved, but he has to repent. And I don't know whether he is sufficiently humble to do that. It's a difficult thing for an intelligent, proud individual to do. What is your opinion about Salvini? I love Matteo Salvini. I would prefer I would prefer La Liga to have been able to take power on its own, but I'm actually pretty pleased with how the alliance with Movimento 5 Stelle has gone, and I think he's been incredibly effective as an interior minister. Yeah, don't trust anyone who props Jung up as brilliant. Absolutely. How do you feel about people taking your ideas and promoting them to the masses with little or no credit given to you? I think it's wonderful. I think that my personal pride is considerably, or my feelings are considerably less important than the ideas being circulated out there. There's a number of ideas. I mean, now, yes, it can be a little bit annoying when people will say things like, "Oh, you're so stupid," and nobody cares about your opinion, and you're like, dude, scientists are conducting studies based on my hypotheses, ideas that I first articulated. You know, the New York Times, Nature, is discussing ideas that I first proposed. But at the end of the day, who cares? You know, at the end of the day, you know what you did, and it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks or if anybody else knows. You know, I mean, in the end, you know, as with two exceptions, nobody gets out of here alive. The best that we can do is pass our ideas on and, you know, leave intellectual descendants as well as physical descendants. Why is Jordan Peterson so obsessed with Disney movies? Because he knows what they're for. Is he nefariously trying to twist the message of classical literature? No. A lot of Disney movies are coded with the same evil religion that Jordan Peterson pushes. Damn, dude, you're 50. What's your secret? Um, I've worked out nonstop since I was, what, 18 years old. Um, Eat right, work out, stretch. Um, I don't have a crazy diet like the Peterson family, but I do eat very light on the carbohydrates. Um, I'm a Camille Paglia fan. I think that her thinking is fundamentally flawed because of her sexual identity issues, but she is a very intelligent woman with a lot of interesting thoughts. I mean, she's one of the people who was important to my intellectual development in college. Um, Super male vitality. So, how far does the religion of JBP go back to Babylon? No, I think it goes back farther. I think it goes all the way back to the Tower of Babel. Could you take Rogan in a fight? Probably. Um, I spent 6 years doing heavy contact uh, martial arts. I don't know what his background is in that. Um, Maybe he's got a similar background. I mean, he's in good shape, um, but you got to keep in mind uh, those TV industry people tend to be smaller than you think. Is the Catholic Church salvageable? Yes. Um, Joe Rogan has great kicks. Um, any tips on how to concentrate on a task for a longer time span without getting distracted? Um, Turn off the internet. Um, Thoughts on sedevacantism? I don't have them. I'm not Catholic. Um, I don't know. You gotta be careful with those. You gotta be careful with those short guys sometimes. Though I had a friend who was about, I don't know, 5'6", and he had this sneaky front kick that you would think you were at hand range, and then he would, when you're focused up here, he would slip this kick up and just boom, take you under the chin. Um, let's see. Do you like Thomas Kuhn's book on the process of the scientific revolution? Absolutely. I've read it twice. Um, are you alt right? Um, I am not Spencerian alt right. I am alternative right. There's a difference. Yeah, I suppose that's the other thing that a lot of you probably don't know about me is that I'm a former NCAA one division sprinter. Um, so even now at 50, people have difficulty dealing with my speed. Um, let's see. What did you propose that nature is looking at? Oh, they did a couple articles on my argument about religion causing war. Um, they they were using my argument because they were using my numbers, which was the conclusive proof. But they of course they didn't mention me or anything. What can you run the 100 in? I have absolutely no idea. Um, I know I can. I know I can run it in under 13 seconds now. I'm pretty sure I cannot run a 10.6 anymore. Actually, I'm not pretty sure. I'm absolutely sure. So, um, yeah, I'm not concerned about Richard Spencer. He's a non-entity. Um, Box, I suggest you begin asking us to hit the like button. Look, guys, if you want to hit the like button, go ahead. If you don't, that's okay. I'm not concerned. What soccer position do you play? These days I play on the wing. I've actually been a striker pretty much my entire life. But, I'm now 18 years older than my teammates. So, of course, they moved me over to a position where I have to run more. So I mostly play. Actually, I started every game except one that I played this year. I started on the wing most of the games. I think 3 games I started at striker. So, but I usually get moved around a bit because I'm not very good, but I hold my own, and so I'm a utility player. Our captain just puts me wherever he puts me wherever he feels he needs me. I can play any position on the sides, on either side. I just can't play in the middle. I don't have the ball. I don't have the technical skills that you need to have in the league that I play in. Where do you see JP in 5 years? I'm not going to answer that question. Any chance you'll ever make an appearance on Owen Benjamin's live stream? If Owen wants me to, I'll be happy to. Soccer and tennis seem best. I actually do. When I finally can't play soccer anymore, I do plan to switch over to tennis. I do not smoke. I've never smoked. Advice on ditching bad habits like smoking and drinking every day. I'm 23. I drink every day. I have 1, occasionally 2 glasses of red wine every day, but that's all. I don't. You're still young, but you talk like you're old. I am old. I'm 50. I'm one of the oldest guys in my soccer league. I'm the oldest guy who plays regularly for my team. I was hoping to be able to make it to 50, and now I'm planning to play to 55. Delay when you shut off the stream. Okay, we can do that. Can you articulate why the Tower of Babel was evil? Because they were challenging God. That's the whole point of trying to bring humanity together. It's to bring humanity together to challenge God. It is more than willful disobedience. It's more than sin. It is blasphemy of the deepest and most intentional. I would like to hear your ideological differences with Spencer besides religion. They're comprehensive. I disagree with Spencer about literally everything. Economics, ideology, you name it. Spencer is not right about anything. Box, who is someone no one would suspect you respect, whose work you like, or who would be the least likely person whose work you admire? It's hard to say. I mean, I think people would be surprised that I admire Martin Van Creveld as much as I do because, he's of a left-wing persuasion, but Martin is everyone knows that I admire him greatly. Do you recommend daily prayer? Absolutely. Are these really the end times? No, I don't believe so. Camille, well, yeah, but I mean, it's hard for me to name somebody like Camille Paglia because everybody knows that. I mean, anyone who has followed me at all knows that I've admired her for decades. What's a good sport for someone over 30 and never played competitively to take up? Probably tennis. Is there anyone on the alt-right that you agree with? I don't even know who is considered to be on the alt-right anymore, and I don't really pay attention to that debate. So, anyhow, we've gone nearly an hour, so I'll just remind you that Jordanetics is out today. It is a comprehensive critique of the spiritual subversive of our time, and I strongly recommend that you check it out. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's on Kindle Unlimited. And so I look forward to seeing you the next time. Thanks for tuning in.